Hi everyone, we are on chapter 2, which is about fractions, and I do know that lots of students don't like fractions. They feel intimidated about fractions. I'm going to teach you some basic things, but you do get to use your calculators for this, so I will try to explain the calculator use. Now, I'm going to explain it from the point of view of the one that we recommend from this class. So whenever I'm talking about that, that's what I'll be saying. But many calculators will have some of the same type of operation as far as finding your fraction key and that kind of stuff. All right, so let's get started. First of all, this is the fraction 3/5. The numerator is the 3, that's the number of parts. The denominator is the 5, and that's the name of the part which is, right, 3/5, right? We have 3 parts out of 5, basically, when we're talking about this fraction. Proper fractions are fractions that are less than 1. And then improper fractions are 1 or more. So like 9/8 is actually the fraction, get me a pen here, 1 1/8. And 7/4 is the fraction. Now, how do I know that? Well, for one, your calculator will do that. So you have something called a fraction key on this calculator, and it looks like this on your calculator screen. So if you can find the key that looks like this, if you put in 9/8, you would press 9 and then your fraction key and then 8 equals, and on your screen it's going to tell you 1 1/8. Now, we can take that 1 1/8 and go back to 9/8 by using your second key. So if you wanted to go back to 9/8, you would do second, your fraction key, right, your ABC key. And then you would push, hold on, I want to make sure I tell you this right. So second, fraction key, and then your equals. And you'll see that it is 9/8. If you wanted to do this without your calculator, which, you know, that's fine. For instance, 7/4 is, let's do that one. That is 1 3/4 because 4 goes into 7 one time with 3 left over. So that's where the 3/4 comes in. 21/10 is 2, because 10 goes into 23 2 times with 3 left over, so 2 3/10. So that is how you go from an improper fraction to a mixed number. These mixed numbers are the same ones that I just showed you, right? So with your calculator, you can actually go back and forth. Now, if you were going to put a mixed number on your calculator, you would push, for instance, this one. You would put in 1 and then push your ABC key. And then you would put in the one that's in our numerator, ABC, and then 8. And then you would have 1 1/8 on your calculator screen. Oh, push your equals key. Sorry, let's do that. And then that puts it into the form that your calculator uses, which looks like this. This little symbol here kind of looks like a U, but that's what you would see on your screen for 1 1/8. I would always be glad to meet with you if you need help with your calculator at all, or of course anything else. You know, meeting on Zoom sometimes and just talking about specific things can be helpful. Now, if I wanted to do this manually, I wanted to go from 1 1/8 to 9/8, then you take 1 times your denominator and add your numerator. So that would be 1 times 8 plus your numerator, which is 9, and that's how you would get 9/8 the old-fashioned way, right? Working without calculators. All right. Two fractions are said to be equivalent fractions if they represent the same number. So this is an easy example because most everyone understands 1/2. So 1/2 equals 2/4. or 3/6 or 4/8. Notice the numerator, the number in the numerator is half of our denominator on all of these. Now how would I get that? If I took 1/2 times 2 over 2, and then that's 2/4. Or if I took 1/2 times 3 over 3, anytime I multiply by 1, I get an equivalent fraction. Now, I've told you that even though you get to use your calculator, a basic understanding of fractions is really helpful whenever you're trying to understand different types of problems that we do. Now, what if I wanted 1/2 to have a denominator of, let's say, 30? Okay, so I know that half of 30 is 15, right? And 2 goes into 30 15 times. 1 times 15 is 15, and hopefully that would make sense. What if I wanted my denominator to be 50? Well, then I know half of that is going to be 25, or 2 goes into 50 25 times. So equivalent fractions are sometimes used for when we're trying to come up with common denominators and those kind of things. So it's helpful to know how to write them. All right, next. So when you compare fractions, using a common denominator is helpful. The same denominator is what that means. Basically, I'm going to use the same denominator. We're not really into decimals yet, but you know, if you took 2 divided by 5 and 3 divided by 7, you could compare the decimal numbers. But I would like you to use the fractions so that you actually practice with that sum. So 2/5 and 3/7. If I want to write them with the same denominator, let me scoot that over. Well, 5 and 7 are both prime numbers, actually. 5 times 7 is 35, so you can always just use the denominator that you would get by multiplying the two. Even if that wasn't the smallest one, you can certainly compare that way. So I would be okay if you were using different fractions than I was, as long as you got the same denominator. Okay, so 5 times 7 is 35, so that means that I multiply my numerator by that 7. Let's do that with a different color. So if I multiply it by 7 over 7, I am just multiplying by 1, right? 7 divided by 7 equals 1. And then I'm multiplying 2 times 7, which is 14. And then on that second fraction, 7 goes into 35 5 times, so I'm going to multiply this one by 5. So it's 5 over 5. And that means that my numerator, 3 times 5, is 15. And so that means we can see that 3/7 is the larger one because my numerator is 15 for 3/7 and it's 14 for 2/5. So that's the larger. All right. Okay, let's look at this next one. So on the next one, I have 3/4 and 13/16. And actually 4 goes into 16, so we're going to leave 13/16 just like it is. But we're going to rewrite 3/4 with a denominator of 16 so we can compare. And so anytime you're wanting to try to compare these fractions, putting them in a form where they have the same denominator is the perfect way to do that. 4 goes into 16 4 times, so we're going to multiply by 4, and that makes this numerator 12. So that means that 13/16 is the larger number than 3/4. Right? So that's my answer on that one. The next one is 4 or 37/9. There's more than one way to do this one. So we could write 37/9 as a mixed number. Well, 9 goes into 37 4 times with 1 left over, so 4 1/9 would be the larger one. So notice I had already circled, I'll just leave it circled. That's the larger one. Or what if we wanted to write 4 with a denominator of 9? So we would multiply it by 9, right? Because 1 times 9 would give me my 9 in the denominator. 4 times 9 is 36. So 36 over 9. See, we're comparing these two. And either way that we do this, we can see we get 4 and 1/9, or 37/9 is the larger fraction. Okay, I know there's a lot of stuff about fractions. It can be very confusing, and so that's one of those things where maybe you need a little extra time, maybe you need a little extra practice, or you need to meet with me to understand. Okay, so let's look at these word problems, or our application problems, right? Sheet metal trades is the first one, which is thicker, a 3/16 inch sheet of metal or a 13/64 inch fastener. We're just comparing the two fractions, right? 16 will divide into 64. So we're going to compare 3/16 and 13/64. And that means we need to rewrite 3/16 with that denominator of 64, right? So we want it to be a 64 in the denominator. And that means we multiply it by 4. And that for the numerator and denominator, that gives me an equivalent fraction. And this one is going to be 12/64. So you can see then that 13/64 is larger than, or thicker in this case, right? It's thicker. So that will be the answer on this one. And that's enough work. What I've shown there is just showing that you rewrote this so you could compare the two, and 12/64 is smaller than 13/64, so therefore we find our answer. Okay, the next one says a ridge beam rises 18 inches over a horizontal run of 72 inches. Calculate the pitch of the roof and express it as a fraction with a denominator of 12. Now this has to do with basically simplifying a fraction. If we write this as rise over run, then we have an 18 inch over 72 inch. And that is going to be our pitch. We want it to have a denominator of 12 because that is common in talking about the pitch of a roof. And so what would we need to divide by to get 12, right? We divide that 72. Well, we're going to divide by 6. And you can always take 72 divided by 12 to figure that out. And that means we divide the 18 by 6. Which gives me 3. And so that's actually my number, right? It has a rise of 3 for a horizontal run of 12. And on this one, if you label it with inches for both of these, then you don't end up with any labels. So just 3 over 12 is all that you would need on that. All right, I think this is a good stopping place because next we're going to talk about multiplication. So I'm going to stop the video for that. If you did put this 18 over 72 on your calculator, it would simplify it completely because 18 actually divides into 72. So it would simplify to the fraction 1/4. All you have to do is use your fraction key, put 18, 18, ABC key, 72, and it simplifies to 1/4. Well, if we multiply that by 3 over 3, then we get 3/12. So we end up in the same place. Even if you went about it that way, it would be okay. You just have to get that denominator of 12. All right. So I'm going to stop this video and then we'll pick up the lesson on the next one.